Roll call. Here.
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 And was Hy gonna join virtually?
He was.
Is he on? You haven't seen him. And I know Jim was not gonna be able to attend, so, okay. All right, are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Madam Chair.
Yep.
I just, that was Anne Marie that just called, that Mr. Miller from Ike Bailey has a conflict in, he'll try to zoom in before the end of the meeting. So he may, or, so we'll have to potentially move either to the bottom or
Not at all.
he may, or off. And then Nick Gagiano, there was really nothing to present to the board, any updates other than that, which I'll cover on the closing. So there will really be no aquatics update today. There was no need for that. So D will be eliminated.
We need to make any, because those are,
Not a problem. Around, you don't otherwise know actually how I can move anything. So I'm not sure we can do anything right now in any event until this happens.
Chairman's remarks. So Pat, you just celebrated 20 years, if I'm correct, right?
I did September 1st.
Or with the Voice Center. So
Two 20-year careers, one in hotels and one with convention centers.
there you go. Well, on behalf of the board, we wanted to say thank you and appreciate your service and commitment to Voice Center and making Boise a great place to meet. We have a little something for you. I'll give it to you after the meeting. So thanks again. And I know that, I don't know if Jody or Chase, you wanted to say a little something. Just say thanks for your service and here's to another 20,
20 more.
right?
Yeah, don't count on that.
With that, I'll move on to item B, approval of minutes from the regular meeting, August 12th.
I'd move acceptance of the minutes. Is that where we are?
Yes.
Okay, second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Approve minutes, and we'll send that around. All right, on to item C, monthly activity and financial report, Pat and Anne Marie.
Great, thanks, Madam Chair, members of the board. Couple of quick highlights. First off, the current meeting trends, I want to bring you up to speed a little bit about what we're seeing from since the last board meeting. We've had a couple of conventions that were canceled at that point. We've had a couple more. It's interesting watching some of the local trends. We've had a couple of local events cancel because of the overall feeling of their board, or they're being told, like, for instance, the hospitals, medical related meetings really don't exist now. So we've seen some cancellations, but what's ironic is that we're getting a lot of short-term calls for additional meeting space. So as you heard Cody talk about, pardon me, while we are having some cancellations, we're having to go back to the team and saying, hey, can we take these call-in events? And does it make sense? Can we staff them, particularly from the culinary side? So it's an interesting dynamic right now where we're seeing cancellations. We're seeing other organizers wanting to still hold their meetings or to add meetings. So again, it's just interesting to watch. It's had a little bit of a negative financial impact on the fourth quarter. Certainly Festival of Trees was the first one. But marginally, other than that, it's just interesting to watch. We're keeping an eye on it. So we're not seeing these huge losses, not huge gains. So it's almost balancing itself out. But we'll continue to keep you posted. You know, as you've heard, the future, as people are looking at booking meetings, this is going to be around. So it's how everyone chooses to deal with the changing dynamics or the new variants. I was reading that there's two. There's an R1 that's being watched now, and then there's the MU variant that's in 48 states. So again, this is going to be around, and so it's just going to depend on how people continue to react to it. So we'll keep you posted on that one. But from a local level, we're continuing to get a lot of local demand. We had Cody and I and Nick Gaggiano from Idaho Competitive Aquatics did a product visit with Dee Pickett of Western Specialty Structures on Tuesday. We spent the morning with him. We went out to Eagle, Middleton, and Caldwell, looked at different facilities. Again, this is for the building for the aquatics center. We're heading to Salt Lake City Tuesday night. We'll spend the night there, hit the ground running on Wednesday with Sprung Structures. We're looking at least at four buildings there, and then they have a manufacturing plant there as well. And we're not sure that we can get into that. They've got some protocols, obviously not just COVID, but just for outsiders being in a manufacturing facility. So we're not sure that we're going to get into that or not. But pardon me, we are going to take a look at that, and then we'll make a decision on which building to go with. I made a presentation to Kiwanis 2 weeks ago. Cody is a member of Boys Kiwanis Club. Made a presentation to them, and then I've been asked to present to the Idaho Travel Council on October 4th over at the Riverside. So I'm going to do that. There's an interesting article that Allie found yesterday on data to support the safety of travel for professional meetings and events. And it's interesting that, I mean, their take on it is how safe meetings really are, because there are protocols in place, and that it's actually safer going to a meeting than it is almost to the grocery store, because again, the protocols are in place. As I noted, that we are looking to close on the property either October 4th or 5. A meeting with Mike after the board meeting to go over to make sure we have all the protocols in place. We've ensured that they have to provide proof of $2 million in the bank as per the lease agreement. It appears that everything is in order. Like I said, going to meet with Mike to make sure that we have everything ahead in case we need signatures from Kristen. She and I have already talked about it. So just let the board know that we are prepared and that we'll have everything dialed in. So Anne Marie's already on board. We have information with the bank so that we can make sure that everything is lined up. So and I just see that Lee Miller is on Zoom, so I presume that he'll be able to when that time comes.
Pat, remind me, Vic, so in Anne Marie's budget, we've got $1,850,000. 1875. And so we start collecting rent in October, I guess, which would be 5% of that number. And then cut down to a month by month.
That's correct.
And then the remaining 3,750,000, whatever, we begin collecting rent when the building is done.
Yes.
Or put in service. Thank you.
Based on
Is that what you use to calculate your aquatics revenue?
Yes, I did. So we showed that the first disbursement will be in October. So we started 5% in October, and then we estimated that the building would be done in July, and our first revenue would start in July at the full value.
Yeah, so the 160 would be 250 on an annualized basis.
Yep, but it's 4 months or through June of the lower rent, and then the higher rent starts
Got it. Thank
once
you.
the building's complete. And then we also, in the budget, Jody, I also showed that there'll be money. The 1,875,000 will be spent right in this year, and then you've got the the other remaining spent next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So as far as additional activities go, as Cody mentioned, and Anne Marie is going to touch on the Cincinnati Insurance Loss Control Review was excellent. The Albertsons Open Dinner, you saw a picture of that. It was great. And as Cody said, from a team effort, we served about 600 people. Outdoor event. It was beautiful. The buffet lines. I mean, one thing about Chris Lochner is that when he puts his mind to wanting to wow the customer, he does a phenomenal job of it. The team came together. Everybody, everybody but one woman whose steak was a little overcooked. I heard nothing, and even she had great comments. But it was really a phenomenal event, and to see the team come together. Again, as Cody alluded to, it was a long day, but it was sure well worth it. Our recruitment efforts are showing success. And then, as I've mentioned, the local events continue to be strong. Conventions are definitely evaluating their status at this point. This is Cody. He was when I did the presentation, it was ironic. It was just the same day I happened to present, but they awarded him the Quantian of the Year. And it just shows the level of quality of the people that we have here, and particularly Cody's efforts. So proud of him for that.
Oh, sorry, I just got a text from Ty. He said he's tried to call in 3 times. He says it goes nowhere. Hi, are you there?
Hello?
Hi, yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you. Hi.
Okay, great.
Thanks. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's fine.
Hi, can you spell Quantian? Nothing. Cody's the Quantian of the Year.
Same thought.
I can't hardly pronounce it.
Again, as you heard earlier, we were a sponsor of the Rose Awards, participated, and I want to recognize Carrie Westergaard, who's here, and her team for coordinating this. The Riverside did an outstanding job. It was just a great event, but having worked with Chris for over 20 years, he certainly certainly earned the recognition of the Spirit of Hospitality Award. It's the one award it's competitive in the sense that the group who decides who the recipient is, they banter the various people who were nominated, but it's the one award that's announced prior to the event. And I don't know of anybody who would be more deserving, particularly this year. And we call him Mr. Downtown, Dr. Lochner. He was definitely, he did a great job in his speech as well. And then Heather Oliphant, one of our food and beverage managers, again, Cody alluded this already, and Shira Hotbet, one of our event managers, also were nominated. And so again, I think again it speaks, and you can see the picture of Heather and Shira in there as well. So again, I think it just speaks to the quality of the individuals that we have working with us. So. Some visitor center stats, had a busy August, 261 visitors. You can see the states with the highest visitor counts. And then the international visitors, people are still able to get here from all over the world. So Spain, France, Argentina, Bangladesh, and Germany. So. Again, the fiscal management, we continue to control the expenses as much as we can. The revenues have been positive. I just received a STAR report for August, and if the numbers work the way they worked in June and July, August was another $1 million room tax next month. We haven't seen that yet, so I'm going out all over the limb, but based on the total revenues compared to July and June, we should have another significant great report or great financials from August occupancy. Rates and demand continue to be up, particularly the rate side. And we'll talk about that a little bit later too, but the leisure rates are significantly higher than rates when you combine business travel and convention travel. So they're exceeding $140. The August rate was 143. July was 141. So you can see how we've broken out the cash position as well. We still have $6 million in the stabilization fund. The aquatics facility estimate, obviously, it's $5 million. With, as Henry alluded to, just under $2 million for the land will be taken out of this year, the rest next year. And the capital needs, again, every month, just highlight that $2 million in reserve. But as Cody talked about, we're thinking next year probably 1.6. So the $2 million is a good round number and a good estimate, but we should come in under that. And as you'll see in the budget, it's it'll be 1.6. Talked a little bit already about occupancy and ADR. Occupancies continue to hold the 2019 levels or higher. The demand in August was a little bit lower. Demand in July was a little bit higher. And again, that $141.54 rate is something that we've never seen before. And in August, it's even higher than that. So this is going to be a strong year from a hotel ADR and occupancy standpoint. Now, with that being said, September, everybody going back to school, we saw some strong demand from conventions, but we also saw a couple of medical conventions fall out. So I think September, October, November, I think we'll see demand slip. Rates, I think, will slip a little bit, but again, most of it's all leisure driven, or most of it's leisure driven. So my gut check just tells me that we'll see a slippage in both for the next couple, 3 months. Same thing, demand and revenues. I just sort of talked about that as well. So continue positive, but I think the fall, given the COVID issues, are going to have when I say negative impact, it's going to be down, but it's still going to be strong compared certainly to 2020, but even 2019. We're still seeing increased inquiries for future dates. Again, 2021, a couple of the fall conventions have fallen out, so we'll be updating that. 2022, we're budgeting, as you'll see, a record year. We're approaching 2022 as if it's a normal year until something tells us it's not. A lot of inquiries for 23 and beyond, and you'll hear that from Carrie and Alan in a couple of minutes. You've seen this already in the work session, and again, I'll let Allie and Carrie talk a little bit more about it, but you've seen these, and I think they're kind of cool, actually. We're still participating in IMEX the first week or the second week of November in Las Vegas, unless they change something between now and then. They are requiring masks and they are requiring verification of vaccinations, but I'm anxious to see the new backdrops as we use them in Las Vegas. It's actually a CVB booth, but I think some of the marketing materials will have the new designs on them. Confirmed conventions, again, strong for next year and beyond, a lot of inquiries. So based on whatever happens with COVID, I have a pretty good gut check on 22 that we're going to have a good year, barring unforeseen circumstances. And with that, I'm going to let Anne-Marie.
Thanks, Pat. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and member of the board. This is kind of a fun month to be able to present, because we have, as you can see, a positive variance, but we've had a record level of revenue again at the district level. And the center has had really good revenues as well. It's actually, we have positive trends continuing, and it's the third month in a row. And so it's fun to be able to present some positive upward trends to you this month. At this point, we're $2.9 million ahead of budget, meaning our revenues are higher than budget and our expenses are lower than budget. And so between the two funds, we have a positive variance of $2.9 million. Next page. Again, if you look at the far right column and you can see the 2021 budget, we are, and then to the left is the actual, and as you can see, we are ahead of our budget for the year, and we still have another quarter to go. As Pat indicated, we had $1 million month in July. We've had another $1 million month in August. In none of our scenarios did we forecast that we would be having $1 million revenue months, which are record tax revenues in 2021. So we're managing our costs. And so overall, it's been a great month for the district. Next. And then operating revenues. Again, we had the highest level of operating revenues since January of 2020. And it actually was a record level for August as some of the events moved from so we started, picking up events that we had lost in the prior year. And July and August are typically low revenue months for us, so we were able to place some of those events in those months to make up some revenue. The one thing, as Pat had indicated, we are seeing our forecast declining due to some of the negative effects or perceptions of COVID. Last month, our forecast was a little bit over 3 million. This month, we're down to 3 million. So we've lost about $300,000 in revenue in the fourth quarter due to events canceling. As Patty also indicated, we have smaller local events picking up. They don't generate the same amount of revenue, obviously, as the larger events, but nonetheless, they are a great fill-in for us and have the potential to at least help with some of that recovery. Next page, please. Again, and this one too, just positive trends. We have events are up, event days are up, our day visits are up, our utilization is up. Some of the things that we continue to be challenged with is the bonus. We've have put in a bonus program for hiring and retention for hourly employees. And in addition to the fact that due to a tight labor market, it continues to put stress on our gross profit. Our gross profit did exceed budget by $118,000 this month due to higher revenues. Fortunately, higher revenues can make up for, once you've covered your fixed costs, can generate some gross profit, and that's what we're having going on here. And as a result, our net loss was less than the budgeted loss by $197,000. And overall, year to date, we're doing well. We're controlling costs, and our reductions in SG&A have compensated for the lower gross profit. So overall, we're under budget still for year to date. Next slide.
Excuse me, Anne Marie. Is
Yes, Jody.
EBITDA line 29 in the draft budget?
Are you talking about the budget? Or line
Yeah.
29?
Mentioned EBITDA here in this last slide, and I was curious whether that's the same as line 29, revenue in excess of expenditure.
On the budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me just double check. Yes, that is true. Yes. Okay. This one here, the utilization. You can see our utilization picked up in August, which of course was responsible for the increased revenues. In September, you'll see September still fairly high. We have had some events canceled since this chart has been created. October's holding pretty steady. November is down due to the cancellation of the Festival of Trees. Again, we have short-term bookings, so we can anticipate that barring any other significant events canceling, that those event numbers, utilization numbers might hold strong. As you can see, those event numbers are within our range, our optimal target range. And so those are some really great utilization numbers for us. And if you look at 2019, you can see at least in September and October, those are approaching 2019 levels. So cross your fingers and hopefully we can continue to hold those utilization levels. Next slide. This is what Pat was talking about. We're getting ready to do an insurance renewal, and I just wanted to read this comment out of from the letter that we received from the underwriter, because I've never seen such a comment from a loss control field director before, and it just says, "This was another excellent review. Your security is tight, maintenance and housekeeping are excellent, and you have great controls over your programs and operations." Again, those contribute to a lower rate when we go to market. However, we are up for our insurance renewal, and we just are coming out of, when we did our insurance, when we went out to bid, we did a 3-year rate lock, and we are coming out of our 3-year rate lock. So we are going back to bid. If indications indicate that our rate increase would be somewhere between 10 to 20%. Depending on where that rate increase is, will determine whether we continue with Cincinnati or whether we go out to bid and see if another vendor would be interested in insuring us at a lower cost. Next slide, please, Pat. Okay. We're going to discuss the budget, but I'm going to go ahead and bypass this piece, and we'll discuss this piece when we discuss the budget a little later in the meeting. Next slide, Pat. So I'd like to, I have the pleasure, if you could go back one, please. I have the pleasure of introducing Lee Miller. Lee Miller is a partner with Eide Bailly, and they are our new auditor for 2021. Our audit is starting in January, but to help facilitate the audit, and with some of the changes that have occurred in the organization with COVID and shrinking staff and then bringing staff back, we had hired Eide Bailly to do an internal control review. That review also helps improve our efficiencies, and it also improves our going into our audit the first time, because now Eide Bailly knows more about who we are and more about our internal control structure, so that they can better prepare for their field work. But I just wanted to express my appreciation to Lee and his team for all their efforts. They were very professional and thorough. And anyway, we invited Lee here today to go over some of his recommendations. So thanks so much, Lee.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. And then my other question is, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I couldn't tell and I didn't know if I was being seen or not, and I didn't want to do anything embarrassing. So I will act accordingly. So Madam Chair, members of the board, I appreciate this opportunity to be able to just take a few minutes today and just briefly review with you what we had done from an internal control perspective, especially focusing on from an accounting financial statement perspective uh, to the organization. As Anne Marie mentioned, it was a review. We didn't perform any testing of the controls, but between myself and the IT person that was part of the team, we've interviewed approximately 20 people to just gather the information, gain an understanding of the various operations aspects of the whole organization. So I'm just going to start from the top, and we have sent out a draft or a letter, but just kind of draft of the recommendations. We're working on a final report, plus also we've been asked to at least put together and try to do a flow chart of it. I'm sure there's a meme out there that shows a flow chart of operations, and it's probably got more lines and things to try to figure out what's going on. There's just a lot of information, a lot of different aspects that's related to the organization, but we'll be trying to put something together so you can take a snapshot, take a quick look, and kind of see how the flow of things are going. Overall, there was nothing that came to our attention that concerned from a breakdown of internal controls. So in other words, if we're talking to the group and we felt like maybe there wasn't a proper segregation of duties, or that someone that was doing journal entries also was taking care of posting cash or those type of things that came into play. The other thing too, whether we felt like there wasn't enough approvals for the different levels, as well as for the types of expenses and expenditures that occurred during the year, but nothing, as a result of our conversations and gaining an understanding, came to our attention. Now, when we're doing the audit, we'll take a look at it from that perspective as well. But right now, our recommendations aren't for correcting or improving from fixing a break in your internal controls. The majority of our comments are from just for room for improvement, especially from an efficiency perspective. It's probably where a good chunk of the comments are from. So I'm just kind of go through the list real quick and just provide a little bit of background. Of course, if there's any questions or clarifications, please interrupt and try to answer them at that time. So the first one that we have is that and the other thing about these recommendations, these are recommendations that we've made, and it's not necessary that we expect them to be implemented verbatim, because there's still a lot of things that, while we have a pretty good understanding, but your people have even a better understanding. So some of the recommendations may not they feel comfortable with, or that there's other items out there that need to be addressed. And so so these are a starting point. And I understand management's had some conversations. They've even had some feedback to us and everything regarding these, the recommendations. So the first one is that the invoices should not have more than 2 approvals prior to submission to accounting for payment. And this is an efficiency perspective. There were some invoices, depending on the department, depending on the dollar amount and everything. There was anywhere from 4 or 5 approvals on those invoices before accounting was paying for it. So one, that slows down the process, and that's one of the things to remember about internal controls. You need the internal controls, you need to have the right kind of internal controls, but at the same time, you don't want internal controls that slow down the efficiency of the organization. So there needs to be kind of a happy medium of the type of internal controls and also that operations are not slowed down. So having more than 2 approvals will slow down that process. And accounting are trying to hunt down or follow up with people to try to get all the necessary approvals so they can go ahead and pay it. Slows down the process. So our recommendation would be at a minimum, that you want to have no more than 2. There might be some, large dollar amounts, or where you might add another layer. Again, that's a conversation with management and the boards need to have to determine what you can be comfortable with. But when you start getting 4 or 5 or more type of approvals, that slows down the process. Also, in conversations that we make the recommendation for Nick and Cody for their approval limits to be increased. There were several. There's a number of invoices that are being approved by managers and supervisors beneath them, and that they were also approving, which be able to free up their time. The recommendation is to increase the limits for them for their approval. So instead of, I'm just going to throw out a dollar amount, maybe they were looking at everything at 1,000 and above, you bump that up to 2,000, 2,500, or whatever the dollar amount. And you'll find that the number of invoices drop significantly when you do that, but the dollar amount, they are still seeing a majority of the expenses that are coming through. And so it's just trying to find that happy medium of looking at the number of invoices, but they're also looking at a large amount from dollar amounts. The third one is that we noted that invoices are received by different people, and they're also entered into the system by those different people. And our recommendation is to try to narrow that down. It'd be nice if you could, where everything gets emailed or mailed, delivered, and it's only one person that inputs the invoices. Your systems are currently that people can go in and be identified when those invoices come in, that, hey, they need to take a look at it and be approved. But there were several different people that were trying to track, trace, maintain invoices. And so we're just making a recommendation that the organization look at streamlining that down to, either a central place or 1 or 2 people that are entering all the invoices. Now, the number of people that were receiving goods or items and makes that indication in the system, that can still be the same different number of people, because they have an understanding more of what was ordered and what they're expecting, so they can still go ahead and do the receive the goods and make the indication in the system. And again, this is just more for efficiencies and freeing up people's time. The other one of the comments was that there's a lot of reconciliation going on, especially when it comes to food and beverages. Our recommendation was to put up almost like, hey, here's an allowable difference. If you get it within I'm not just going to throw out an amount. If you get it within $50 on your reconciliation, you call it good and go on. I think I've got some feedback that management doesn't feel comfortable. Again, that's just a decision to be, it can be made with that they feel like they need to get it much closer. Some people balance their checkbooks to a penny. Other people like me, if I get it close, that's close enough, but every organization needs to be different. And again, this is just a recommendation, and so I think management's taking a really good look at it and everything, and then they can go from there and report back to you. We recommended that when it comes to your fixed asset, your capital assets capitalization threshold be increased from $1,000 to either $2,500 or $5,000. Now, this doesn't mean that the center is going to quit tracking those items. They still need to be tracked for, protection. You don't want things walking away. Also, you got insurance perspective and everything. But when it comes from an accounting, reporting and efficiency perspective, raising the threshold does free up some time from an accounting side aspect of trying to track all those assets and capitalizing them, depreciating them, and reporting on them. Again, I find that raising it, the number of items are being tracked go down significantly from a reporting perspective, but you really are still looking at a majority of those items that are capitalized are being tracked from an accounting aspect. One of the things I was specifically asked to kind of follow up on when it comes to beverages, and right now the current process is that the beverages are reconciled after each event. They know the amount of inventory beginning for the event. They do a count at the end, and they reconcile to the sales and the amounts that of drinks and so forth. Is there some efficiencies, or what are other organizations doing? And so I had reached out to a few of our clients that especially in Reno and Las Vegas, when it comes to what do they do. And the organizations I talked to, they basically had done the reconciliation on a monthly basis. And so that is something to be taken into consideration. I think management's not quite comfortable with that, but again, that was just a recommendation, and also just give you a heads up what others are doing in the industry. And so, they had a pretty good idea, and you as well, what your margins, and they track their inventory and so forth during taking a look at a different perspective. They also looked at it at a much higher level than the center does at this point in time. But again, that is just something that management needs to discuss and get comfortable and reporting to the board and how you want to do it. So there's not a magical dollar amount or particular way that it's done. But it is something that can be taken into consideration from a overall industry perspective of what others are doing. One of the things that came up in conversations, and typically we usually don't like to make a recommendation to fix some of your or potential items and or improve efficiencies, just to hire more people, but it came out pretty strong in talking with others and within the group and everything, that there is a lot of work when it comes to tracking contracts, deposits. One group was responsible for a certain type of a contract, another group was responsible for their contracts, and not saying that anything was slipping through the cracks, but there's a lot of detail. And so one of the recommendations we make is for you to take a serious look at and see if you need to hire someone. And I think there were conversations of that going on before we started our review. But one, it allows someone to be on top of it all the time and working with all the different customers and clients that you're dealing with, and that way it's not taking away time from other people that should be focusing their time and efforts on other aspects of the organization. I'm going to skip here for a minute on the next section was from IT recommendations, and we had our IT guy come out, not come out, but at least visit with key members of management that were involved from a IT software, and then also talking with your IT people. And the two IT guys could talk their own language and everything. But anyway, we came up some general recommendations when it comes to IT. And right now, what we're seeing across the board of all of our clients in the different industries is the fact that strong IT, internal IT, but also cybersecurity, is a big deal. As you're just trying to have the right kind of controls in place to protect yourself. And so some of these will probably sound like Greek to most of us, but they are things that we've seen that we're recommending with our other clients as well. One of the recommendations was just that there are control processes, and that if we're recommending that if there's a change to any of those control processes within your your IT, that there should be a process in place that tracks those changes. And the reason why you want to do that is that if people are making changes to processes, external and or also internal processes, like you can have approvals and or who can have certain access to information. And if those changes aren't being tracked, then it's easier for someone to take advantage of the system and make changes knowing that no one's going to be able to see that. And so the general comment was just to, improve and better documentation when you have changes in your processes. The other thing is that we're aware that man is working on, but they should finalize and approve the organization's new information security policy. And that might have been done since we're out doing a review, but that was one of the recommendations. Also, for recommending that schedule quarterly data backups for your restoration testing of your critical data. That's the other thing besides your cybersecurity, but it's just protecting your data, making sure you have backups. You get those ransom where situations, someone takes over your system. If you have backup, then you're able to use that backup to get the systems up and running. And we recommend that, at a minimum, that's done quarterly. And then when it comes, and I guess that leads into your disaster recovery programs, we're recommending management should complete and approve a business continuation plan. So that's just your disaster backup, making sure you have that plan and process but in writing, and that you're doing it. And then we've made the recommendation to do yearly testing and to include a walkthrough, assimilation, checklist, full interruption, and parallel testing. And it should be documented in the continuation plan, as well as in your discovery recovery plan of what that yearly testing should be and what should be done. And again, it's just, one of the important things about your internal controls is that you're doing a monitoring process of your controls. And that's what this comment was doing to help from an IT perspective. And then the last one from an IT side of things is that, you should document your organization policy and procedures to when it comes to categorizing your data, so that you can make sure that you have the proper level of security. Not everybody should have access to all data, and so you need to have that documented, and so that you can take a look at and evaluate, do we have the right kind of levels of security for the data. And then the last two things is we had a couple general comments. This one we give to kind of across the board, just for continuation perspective and just making people think. But do you have a succession plan for key management positions? And so if someone is gone, do you have people that can step in and take over temporarily? You probably do in your mind, so the operations will probably continue. If something were to happen to, let's say, Pat, Nick, or Anne Marie, just because I mentioned their names, I don't believe that something is going to happen to them. But right now people could step in, but it's probably in the best interest that there is a plan that's written so that that's in place. And then the other one is when it comes to policies and procedures. We highly recommend that these are reviewed at least on an annual basis, and that reviewed by management, and then also presented to the board for approval for any changes, and or it might be presented that there be no changes to the policy. We also recommend you come up with a plan that this is done throughout the year. You don't have all the policies and procedures are reviewed in 1 month and also presented to the board. Depending on the number that you have, you might do so many per quarter. Once a quarter, you look at 3 or 4 or whatever the case may be. So you spread that throughout the year. So these are kind of the general comments that we had and recommendations. Overall, without actually testing the controls, we're, you have the right kind of controls that are there. I think it's just tweaking a few things here and there from an efficiency perspective, and maybe strengthen a few things here and there as well, and especially I think from the IT side of things. So that's it. Generally from our recommendations, I guess I'd just open it for any questions at this point in time.
Madam Chair. Hi, Lee.
Hello.
Do we have a engagement letter for the audit?
It's not a form. No, we do not have a formal engagement letter since it's more of an internal control review,
I'm
but
not-
it is. Oh,
I'm
so
talking about upcoming audit. engagement.
upcoming, no, we don't. We have not gotten to that point yet.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anne Marie, anything else you wanted to add?
No, again, I just wanted to thank Lee for all of their efforts on our behalf.
Well, thank you, Mr. Miller. Sounds like a good recommendation.
Thank you.
Does Anne Marie have anything else? You have anything else with?
Anne Marie, anything else that you need to cover as part of yours? Or should we move on?
Nope, that completes our presentation. Thanks, Pat.
Great, thank you. With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the monthly activity and financial report.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. So we already had heard from Mr. Miller, Bailey. So when will that engagement letter be coming? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Before what? Yeah, before November?
Is Lee still here?
I am.
When will we do an engagement letter?
We could have something out for review, let's say the first week of October.
Good.
Great, thank you. Anything else regarding the audit? On to item number B, local marketing update, Ally and Carrie.
Afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. It's nice to be in front of you again today. We always appreciate the time to share updates between the Boise Center and CVP sales teams. Today, we will be covering several different items here. We'll be giving updates on the convention marketing campaign. Also sharing updates from the perception study that was conducted by Digital Edge earlier this summer. We'll be talking about summer lodging and some of the leisure campaign activities there. And finally wrapping up with joint initiatives. So kicking things off with our convention marketing campaign, Orange 142 is our advertising and marketing agency that the center and CVP are working on together. This agency is running a campaign for us from July through the end of the year, through December, and we've also received a proposal for them for continued efforts through 2022. So our campaign kicked off in August. Carrie will be covering some of the results from those that month performance here shortly. But just to kind of give some framework to this convention campaign, Orange 142 is kind of guiding us through our campaign journey, if you will. We've worked together to develop 3 messaging pillars. These pillars really kind of give some cohesiveness and focus to the campaign. All the content that is deployed really falls under one of these 3 pillars. We are targeting markets, of course, in Idaho and the Pacific Northwest, some of the Mountain West region, California, DC, and Mid-Atlantic. and certainly covering our top performing industry types as far as association, corporate, sports, education, and government types. Our audience that messaging and emails are going out to include meeting planners, our clients, end users, third-party planners, executives and decision makers, and also administrative professionals. So if we look at the first of the three messaging pillars, this one here is transformation. Transformation, the content that falls under this pillar is all about shifting perceptions about the destination. And really, we say shifting perceptions. I think a lot of it has to do with creating perceptions. We find from our conversations with clients when we're on the road, or even from the perception study, that a lot of people just don't really know what to think about Boise. They're hearing some buzz, but they don't know a lot about the destination. So transformation really is focusing on destination attributes and products that we have available here. So the number of our hotels, the amount of meeting space we have, downtown accessibility and walkability, and also some of our outdoor meeting facilities. This pillar here really sheds some light on the growth and the development that's happening in Boise. And I will say, as you look at some of these are our digital ads, that our advertising is really supported by proof points. And so here, we're saying, have you heard the buzz about Boise? And it's supported by an actual fact about our meeting space downtown. This is carried through all of our campaign efforts, just to really drive education to the clients so they learn about Boise and our meeting facilities.
So question about the amount of meeting spaces, that include other venues?
So this one kind of falls under our Welcome to the Neighborhood campaign with, it's a combination of Boise Center and the arena. And certainly, you factor in the hotels, surrounding hotels, and we have well over 100,000 square feet of meeting space in downtown, and kind of a campus concept. Second pillar here is progress. Content under this pillar here is really kind of framed under this idea of Boise is now and next. There's certainly a lot of attention, I think, on Boise and the number of people moving here. There are a lot of interest in the destination. And what's interesting about this pillar here is we're capitalizing on our social currency, which is really kind of the idea that Boise is sort of that gram-worthy destination. People that come here are interested in posting about their experience. They want to, share the fact that they're in Boise and doing some really cool thing, whether it's whitewater rafting or certainly Freak Alleys, a very picture-worthy moment, that you can post. This pillar here is going to focus on our unique destination attributes. Some examples, the fact that we're both urban and very safe, accessible to outdoors, and clean and walkable, and that's all in our downtown core and meeting package. And the third pillar is personal. The content in this pillar is really focusing on this whole own the house, own the city concept. That's kind of something that was coined by Kay Dillon, one of our sales managers here, that Orange 142 just really kind of latched onto. And it's one of the things that sets Boise and Boise Center apart. And just the size of our building and downtown, it allows those kind of small to mid-sized conventions to be the big fish kind of in a little pond. And so as a result of that, they get this really phenomenal VIP treatment and experience that might otherwise be lost in a larger facility or destination. So I'll toss it over to Carrie here. This shows our results from some of our marketing efforts with Orange 142.
Yeah, now that we're a month into the campaign, we're really happy to share the results with you. Very strong engagement with both our paid media and our email campaign. Like Ali said, it's only been a month, but you can see that we've had nearly 2.5 million impressions, and that equals about 340,000 devices. So it's the impressions were probably multiple times the same person. There's been over 16,000 clicks with an average click-through rate of 0.69. And that is well above the industry benchmark of 0.8 to 18%, depending on what medium you're using for digital. So one of the areas that did not have a strong engagement yet was DC. So we've just pulled back a little bit on the DC market. It was about 4 times lower than the other markets that Ally mentioned we were targeting. We will, keep an eye on that and readdress that in another month.
And did you, because I mean, DC is mostly association, and did you hire somebody at DC?
So we can announce this. We ended up advertising the position there and here. We kept it open for a long time. We had some strong candidates. We ended up hiring Shannon from the Hampton Inn. She's been there for 14 years. And she starts October 11th. So it's the group sales manager, Eastern Region focus. So we will have a face there. She'll be going back. She'll be the person. We have a joint show that we're going to at the end of November. I believe. And so we'll end up doing some sales calls around that.
Okay, we don't have anybody in there.
Not living there,
It doesn't sound
unfortunately.
like it's would be worthwhile.
Yeah, not living there. So our campaign objective was really to get in front of the audience and change their mind and perceptions, like Ally said, increase engagement. And this has driven more business to the website with a 35% increase over the previous month and 103% over the year previous, same time last year. So what it's really telling us is that this is an engaged market that's ready to start planning and having events. So did you have
Just wanted to add to the DC market performance, and we had a call with Orange 142 yesterday, and it kind of more anecdotal from their perspective, but they think the reason behind kind of the lag in DC for Boise is the fact that planners are still focused more regional at this point. And so some of their clients that are in the surrounding states, the mid-Atlantic area, aren't seeing the I shouldn't call it dismal, but they're having a higher engagement with DC planners just because it's more of a regional focus for them.
So our first email went out in August to 75,000 meeting planners and decision makers. It's through the Orange 142 channels, and they have an open rate of 50%, which is huge. It's almost double the benchmark of about 15 to 30%. We also sent the email, as Ally had mentioned, to our own databases, which is about 7,200 combined. That had a lower open rate, which is expected because they're more familiar with our destination and they're not seeking that information as much as a new planner would be. So we still had a strong response. We're also posting 4 LinkedIn posts a month, and then we're doing 1 blog content with them a month that's going to be tied into the future emails that we're doing. So really the takeaways were that the results really did indicate that so far that the meeting planner audience is back in market and they are actively pursuing potential destinations for future events. So we're glad that we're in front of them in a strong way.
So shifting gears to the perception study, this is a study that Digital Edge, which was the campaign, the agency that we worked with prior to Orange 142, they joined us out here for the Summer Fam in July, and they conducted a pre and a post perception study with the planners. So we see here the 12 planners that participated. And really the objective behind the study was to uncover kind of the level of familiarity that planners have with the destination, identify what our strengths and weaknesses are from their perspective, and also understand what markets we should be targeting, who they think that we would find the best results working with. So just to give some highlights from that, we've kind of broken this down here into the pre and the post visit results. So pre-visit, the group was surveyed, what came to mind, what words came to mind when they think of Boise. And so we see here among the list was mountains, clean air, potatoes, outdoor activity, adventure, the fact that we're hip, we're thriving. And they were also asked to, from from what they know about Boise, what they thought they knew about Boise, to compare us to a city. Who do they think we're most like? And the first city on that list was Salt Lake City. What I thought was interesting from this question is there were 15 cities on that list. So there was a wide range of who they think we're most like. Some others on that list included Boulder, Austin, Bend, Asheville. And, I think those are all cities that kind of have a really positive buzz around them. There's cities that, Asheville, for example, oh, I've heard so much about it, I want to go there. Boise kind of falls into that same category. As far as their awareness going into the FAM trip about Boise, their feedback indicated that it was average to good. There was one planner that felt like it seemed like they didn't really know much about Boise, which is probably good that they came on the trip. Post visit, this was done after they had spent 2 to 3 days here. Their takeaways on Boise was the fact that they feel we're a fresh, friendly, proud city. We're young. We've got a compact downtown, safe and affordable. So again, a lot of things that we know. We're definitely glad that they picked up on the same. After seeing our meeting space and hotels available, they feel that our ideal audience are the small associations, higher education, just due to our affordability, board retreats, corporate events, team building, sports, and tech events. As far as engagement moving forward, they recommend the best avenues to keep in touch with them would be via email, doing social posts, posting videos, and heading out to trade shows. And they see our growth opportunities. One of the things, and this is, in conversations also with some of the planners, is that they do feel as though Boise could use a larger convention headquarter hotel. We know our teams, it's a hurdle in working with clients that those citywides that we would consider like a 300 on peak do require, maybe 3 or more hotel rooms to actually fill that block, which is a hurdle for our clients. And so having a larger hotel that could accommodate a bigger block would be a huge win for the city and for the center. Also, they feel as though Boise could use more flights. And this is even after the 10 additional flights that were added over the last several months, but nonetheless, more flights and probably more than likely more of those nonstop flights from the East Coast. And they do recommend that we continue to market and stay engaged with them. So we are, happy that the fact that the board has supported our work with Orange 142 and the convention marketing campaign there. In summary, from the perception study, those that weren't familiar with Boise were pleasantly surprised. They feel that we're a very hip and affordable destination. And they were impressed with the quality of the select service hotels that are in downtown, the smaller boutique properties. I know we've all had experience at those properties, and they're all very lovely, so the planners felt the same. And again, they do recommend that we continue to generate awareness, stay engaged at trade shows, and stay in market.
We wanted to give you an update on our leisure campaign, since we did speak about it our last report out. We won't go into great detail, but just the numbers were really strong here as well. So we continue with Base Camp Boise with Duff Watterson, who we contracted with last December. And we spent $175,000 on our leisure campaign, and that was in media such as Google, TripAdvisor, Facebook and Instagram, retargeting. We did a lot of digital with them. And there were over 11 million impressions year to date, with 115,000 clicks. And again, a very high average click-through rate. And actually it's higher. They corrected it yesterday, so I forgot to correct it on here. It's 1.39%, which is well above the 8 to 18% digital advertising industry benchmark. So we're really pleased with how that's going. I wanted to show you on the next slide, which is some of what Pat already covered with tax collections and how the STAR report's looking. Record summer, 84, 85% in the district as far as occupancies. This is from the 2% state bed tax collections through Idaho Tourism or Idaho Travel. And you can see, again, June, July, and August, the biggest months ever. So, and that's 2% of the bed tax. And just to remind you, our region goes from Mountain Home to McCall. That's called Region 3. It's about 8,600 hotel rooms. The district has about 5,800 hotel rooms. So we have a big chunk of that. And then as far as an airport update, we did meet with Sean, and he provided a little bit of how the summer has been going for them. So their August numbers are not out officially, but they do anticipate June through August traffic to be slightly above the 2019 traffic, which kind of mirrors what we saw with the lodging as well. July 2021 was the busiest month in the airport's history. So there were over 419,000 travelers, passengers traveling through the Boise airport. And so based upon, anecdotal evidence, they really anticipate passenger traffic to be a slightly dip in September. But, we are the most connected we've ever been with the 28 nonstop flights, 8 airlines, and of course, the 10 new ones this past year. And 9 out of the 10 nonstop flights are at the busiest airports in the US. So I do believe some of what the perception study was probably referring to, we had a few planners, one from Boston, one from DC. I mean, there were definitely some East Coast markets that, especially if they take one particular airline, a lot of people are loyal with points to either United or Delta. It might not be the easiest destination to get to in that case. So that's pretty much the update on the airport front. But I did want to just also, because we had touched on this, our co-op advertising with Idaho Tourism and really directing nonstop marketing to Atlanta, Austin, and the JFK market is almost over. It's running through mid-September, so we should have final results soon. But to date, the campaign's been going really well. 9.5 million impressions. We delivered 8,900 clicks with a click-through rate of 0.9%. So that was more on the industry average. There were 29,000 unique page views. And actually the users from New York City were the most engaged, followed by Atlanta and then Austin. So we do have a market there. That was the shortest of the 3. The other ones are year-round daily service that lasted for 6 weeks, but we haven't gotten the final numbers yet from JetBlue, but I do believe that there's conversations about next summer for that flight and hopefully returning for a little bit longer. And so we're also doing some billboards we did in the Atlanta market. This hit 3.1 million impressions based on the traffic volume. It was in Buckhead and Marietta, Georgia. That ran for the month from mid-July to mid-August. And then we're also targeting Austin, which is a very hot market for billboards. That is going to be mid-October for 1 month. And again, with that, we're going to have a digital component. So anyone that passes by the billboards during the day will be sent a retargeting ad later on, either that night or the next day, whenever they're on a device, which I know is a little creepy, but that's the world we live in. So we're glad we have that ability to do that as well.
So switching gears here, this is just to give a little bit of a recap on some of the sports or culture events that took place and also the ones scheduled for the rest of the year. We had the Twilight Criterium in July that brought over about 650,000 economic impact to the community. Albertsons Open, 1,100 room nights, 2.9 million economic impact. The Balloon Festival earlier this month, about 650,000 economic impact. Tree Fort, which is of course kicking off as we speak, over 3,300 room nights, 2 million in economic impact. And I'm happy to say that Boise Center is welcoming Tree Fort for the first time into the building this year. You may have seen them downstairs or over in West, and they're going to be hosting Hack Fort here, as well as some podcasts and panels. And so it should be a really great event to welcome into the building. In December, yes.
curious, how does Spirit of Boise Balloon Festival with their room night have a similar economic impact to Twilight Criterions with a much less room night?
Oh, that's a very good question.
The Twilight Criterium has, I think they account for the other elements of the event, like how much they cost to put on the event. And so that's all put into the calculator.
So the ancillary spend.
Yeah, it's everything else. And sometimes it's media exposure as well, if there's any networks that are involved in a particular event.
Okay.
Which Spirit of Boise, I mean, I do believe, I'm sure we get people from outside the area that come in for that. It is very regional, but they may have come one year and, oh, we'll go back that month, the same time period next year. But it doesn't have the, beyond the radio sponsorship, they don't have a broadcast network involved with it.
So where does the economic impact network come from?
From our calculator, so we have a,
Okay.
we have a sports calculator as well, so it's specific to that.
So finally, we'll end the year with the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, and in December, about 1,500 room nights and 1.2 million in estimated economic impact there. I also wanted to mention that, we're definitely excited about the new ICA product. CBB is already working with Idaho Competitive Aquatics. Andrew Height and Lucas Gebhardt are working with Nick, excuse me, on a bid for August 2023, a swim event for that summer. Our understanding is that we're shortlisted among 2 cities, so between Boise or whomever else is under consideration. And that if Boise isn't selected, there's strong potential for 2024. Come here. Touching on center and CVB joint initiatives, we have 2 sales call trips scheduled for this fall. First, we'll be heading to Seattle in October, and then going to the DC market end of November. These sales calls are essentially our sales missions, although we've kind of adjusted them to be more one-on-one visits rather than what we would typically do is orchestrate a larger event within the city and invite a bunch of clients to come and mingle and network and learn about Boise Center and the destination. Just given people's comfort levels right now, we didn't feel as though that would be successful. So we're confirming individual appointments in these 2 cities in the next few months. As far as big wins, we've got some great contracts that have been confirmed this past quarter. ITD, which is the Idaho Transportation Department, will be hosting a conference called NATMEC. This is National Transportation Monitoring Expo and Conference. This is in June next year with over 1,700 room nights. Fulbon and their fall conference will be here in October next year, over 900 room nights. We've got Idaho Farm Bureau Federation, which is a multi-year contract for December, which is always a great win for a convention. It's typically a hard month to sell. 2023 and 2024 with 500 room nights each. And also, we'll be welcoming back WISHNA. This is Western States Hostage Negotiators Association. We hosted them this spring, and quick turnaround. They had such a great experience. They want to come back here in 2024. So they will be here in April of 24 with close to 700 room nights. Finally, both of our teams have been really interested in bringing an industry event to market. We did submit a bid for Conference Direct CDX, and the board had heard a little bit about this at our last presentation. This is an event that brings in 50 Conference Direct representatives, which are third parties, 50 of their clients, and also an additional 50 suppliers. We submitted a bid for that earlier this year to host it in August of 2022, and the decision is pending. Conference Direct has hosted about 3 events. Well, they've had 2 over the last month and have another one scheduled for next year. And so I think the decision has just been postponed because they're planning the events on the ground right now. So segueing into those events that we're traveling to, again, Conference Direct, we've got Rhonda out there this week for the Construct Partner Meeting. Teams Conference, Lucas, the new sports sales manager with the CVB, will be heading to that event later this month. This is a sports focused event. We've got the Seattle sales calls in October, followed by Conference Direct CDX, which is really great that we have, that we're attending that event just in case we do win the bid for August of 2022. It gives us an idea of how this program runs and how we can successfully execute it. Carrie attended CDX in Mackinac Island in August. So we'll collect her feedback along with Rhonda's, who's attending this one in Oklahoma City next month. November, as Pat mentioned, IMEX America will have a crew out there, Boise Center, the CVB, and a couple of hotel partners representing at that booth. Connect Pacific Northwest, and then finally ending with Connect Winter Marketplace, which is where we're also going to tie in our DC sales calls in late November.
So question on, I know IMEX, you mentioned the protocol, people to go. Are you anticipating less attendance at some of these trade shows?
You know, the team just came back from Tampa last month, which was Connect Marketplace, and Connect Marketplace saw its largest attendance that they've recorded. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, it seems as though people are ready and happy to get back together, if for nothing else, just for that sort of face-to-face engagement and networking again. I mean, we've all had tons of opportunity to get the education content that we need, you know, through Zoom calls or virtual sessions. And so overall, the feedback has been really positive. You know, the clients, the quality of clients that are going to these events.
And I'll just add to that, there was an article recently that alluded to maybe the international may be down on that. But for us, we are successful usually from that international. Most of the people that come through our booth are from domestic.
So this slide here, there's a lot of data on this slide. I'll kind of break it down. What this shows is by quarter 2021's performance in terms of room nights and economic impact compared to 2019. You know, we definitely see COVID and Delta remaining top of mind. It has had a slight impact here in Q3. You know, clients are kind of trying to reconcile what's recommended by the CDC versus what's recommended locally. And really, from what we've found, is CDC is deferring to local guidance, which in Boise, we are unrestricted and we're open to meet. The city of Boise did, when I say we are unrestricted, Boise Center, the city of Boise recently issued requirements for special events that are permitted through the city. However, those don't impact how Boise Center is able to host an event as far as any limited capacities. We do continue to work with our clients based on their unique requests or accommodations that they'd like to put in place for their event. And Boise Center, we've in fact implemented a mask requirement for employees in public spaces, just, you know, as far as being a good partner to the city and their requirements, understanding, you know, we need to do our part as well. For the second half of 2021, Q3 actual slips slightly from estimates, only a few percentage points in both the room nights and economic impact estimates. Q4 has been impacted slightly by concerns over COVID. We did have a larger convention cancel that was scheduled for mid-October. That accounted for about 1,800 room nights and almost 900,000 in economic impact. But you see here for our Q4 estimates, we're still in really good shape as far as room nights go. Economic impact is, even though it's slightly under 2019 levels, we're still anticipating a great quarter. And as we look into 2022, the tentative and definite events that are on the books in 2022 account for 24% over fiscal year 19 actuals, and economic impact is currently at 7% over 2019 actuals. So still plenty of time to book 2022. As I said, you know, we booked about 50% of our business in the year, so it should be a great year.
Madam Chair, Ally, that bottom line, there's 2,100 more hotel rooms and $1.5 million less. How does that work?
Some of the variance may be due to 2019, we were using a Destination International's economic impact calculator, whereas the estimates that we use are a BSU, so it's more of a localized figure that's generated. The DI calculator doesn't allow us to, it's proprietary, so we can't actually apply our numbers that we report in Ungerbach and have it generate automatically an estimate for economic impact. So my understanding is that with events being, they were sort of iffy for 2021. We got off to a slow start in the first quarter. We've actually just relied on the BSU economic impact calculator for this year. And that's, I suspect, where the number is off.
So they're different methods.
They are
We're gonna-
different. DI takes into account more of like a shoulder period, the pre and post event impact. I think there's other factors. I'd have to look into the specifics, and I can certainly share some.
Are we going to stick with the method we have now?
No, I believe we'll be going back to the DI calculator for FY 2022.
Not apples to apples.
No, not entirely, unfortunately. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
New sports person? You just went on your sports, so you have a new sports salesperson.
Yes, so we are fully staffed. Or we will be in October. So he just started on September 7th. His name's Lucas Gebhardt, comes from KTVB. Definitely has a sports passion and background. He's been immersed in the destination right now. We've had him really busy, going to all the hotels and venues and touring, and he's 2 weeks into it, going to his first trade show. So we're throwing him right in.
Larry.
No, but they work at the same place.
Finally, I just wanted to point out that in front of you also you'll find the Ungerbach Convention summary stats reporting some of our metrics for August of 2020 through September of 2021. Mary Michael had mentioned this in her presentation a little bit earlier. Really, no major shifts in this report here. We did see corporate and association flip-flop in terms of association typically being our the sector that typically provides and books the most business. Corporate has since taken that #1 role. Not terribly unusual. These two sectors are always our top performers, and we'll just continue to see them jockey for that first and second position. More just anecdotal, association business, I think, is feeling pressured by their boards to cancel or postpone events. Some of the groups that we've had to work with through a cancellation recently is due to that reason, whereas a meeting planner would like to continue hosting the event, but it came down to a board decision to cancel it. And if there are any other questions, we'd be happy to answer.
I see that Arizona books business, so does that tie in with marketing that they're doing?
And some of those are really, so Shamrock Foods has become a regular client of ours, and their account is actually based out of Arizona. So that's where we see Phoenix and Arizona come into play there as well.
Any questions? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, Anne Marie, budget update?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And members of the board. Let me find my notes here. But just wanted to, what you have in front of you is a draft budget for 2022. We had a meeting, well, at the last board meeting, we had a conversation about how we wanted to present the budget, and the agreement was that we would present the budget as we saw it today, understanding that there might be additional impacts from COVID that we can't calculate or project. And so we went forward under those directions. So the budget that you'll see before you is making an assumption that there are no impacts and that the forecast that we have going forward from our event software are accurate and real. Wanted to thank the Finance Committee for their meeting and their input during the discussion. We had a meeting on September 10th where we had a general discussion about where we were seeing the numbers, and they supported the budget that we have presented here in the draft form. We also went back after the meeting and made some more, did some more cuts to try to make sure that we could get it so that the district and the operating center were a net, at least at a net zero for cash coming in and cash coming out. And we've been successful in doing that, and actually have resulted in more cash coming in before the aquatics project. Once we factor in the aquatics project, our cash will decline. But what I wanted you to just kind of, I'll go over the form and then I'll open it up, and I'm sure that Pat will have some comments as well. So one of the things that we've added new to this form, which I apologize for if those of you that have the 8.5 by 11, it does get pretty tiny, but we added the aquatic center in. The aquatic center will be set up as a different fund based on our internal discussions and our discussions with Lee Miller on the best way to account for that. And so you'll see the additional aquatic center fund. So you have the forecast on the left, which is column G, H, I, and J. And the forecast is we take the actual results through August, and we add our forecast to that for September, October, and November. And you can see we're forecasting district revenues for the end of 21 to be 7.4. And the center right now is about 3.2. Then the next group of columns, which is L, M, N, and O, is the 2022 budget, which we have forecasted that tax revenues will be 8.1 million, and that the Boise Center revenues will be almost $9,000 higher than the tax revenues. And as Jody had asked on the budget, the 160,000, that's half a year at the 1,875,000 for the land, and then we bump it up to as 5% of the 5 million for the remaining half of the year. Then when you get to the columns T, U, V, and Y, those are the changes. And so those just show you the difference in the changes between what we're forecasting that 21 will end up with and the budget for 22. The number to look at is, if you look at L50, and that number is $599,383. That is how much money the district will generate before they pay out the $3 million for the aquatic center. So when you look at that, the net difference is going to be a decrease in cash of around $2.5 million for the year. Some of the challenges that we face in this budget this year are, as you've heard Cody talk about it, and we've talked about it in some of the prior meetings, is that we have the rising labor costs that have made it difficult to manage our gross profit. We do have a positive gross profit from this one. It's around 19%. Ideally, we'd like to be higher than that, but with everything unknown, we're shooting for around a 19% gross profit margin. Part of the labor costs that are being impacted is just the lack of labor. So hiring temp employees, we've had to do bonus incentives to get people on our payroll. And in addition, we've done bonus bumps to keep our people on the payroll. We've talked about, and then we had pay freezes last year. So you've got those, and along with the wage compensation studies shows that several of our positions have fallen behind based on market. And so we have some market pay adjustments to make to bring those people back into a mid-level on the pay scale. One of the things that is important about that is, I don't know if you've read, but some of the research I've done shows that 40 to 50% of people are out looking for work. They're not happy with their, and that's not particular to our organization, that's in the industry. They either aren't happy with their employment. And so, you know, we have a good work culture. We've implemented the logistics program to help maintain that culture, but we do have to also maintain a competitive pay base to retain our people. The last thing we talked about was when the last piece of it was the capital budget. We did have a capital budget forecasted at about 2 million. We've gone through and the capital budget for this year is 1.6 million. We always budget high, and that is will probably be the case with our capital budget this year too, but we did hold off some projects last year at the request of the board, and so we had to increase the capital budget some for this year to ensure that we maintain the facility and the conditions that. So I would offer to all of you, if any of you want to have individual conversations, please call me. We can go over this, or you can email me with questions. And I'm more than happy to go into more detail with you. Do you have any comments to add, Pat?
No, you've covered it well, and I think they've heard from me enough.
Okay. Any questions from the rest of the board?
No, I don't think so.
Anyway,
Thanks, Sam.
okay. You will have time. You have time to review it. We will present the full budget book in October for final approval so that we can renew the lease and on Boise Center East and keep everybody happy.
Thanks, Anne Marie.
You're welcome.
And no products. I think that's it. So seeing no other business before the board. Let's adjourn.